Hey guys, today we're talking about dating. Dating is a topic for a lot of people that is surrounded by frustration, anger, resentment, hopelessness, desperation, all different types of things. And I think also for a lot of people, dating kind of feels like a job interview. You go on a date, you gotta sit down, talk to somebody. Oh, you gotta talk to somebody, right? You gotta have this conversation that's super superficial. What do you do for a living? Where are you from? How much money do you make? People probably don't ask actually how much money you make per year, but they ask you these questions and it feels like you're just checking off boxes, right? Checking to see if this person matches your requirements or your lifestyle and to see if you match their lifestyle, right? And if you don't, oh well, you don't get to date and that's it. Bye-bye. So, I think for a lot of people, it's like this is weird. I don't know. It just there's a lot of pressure around it too. So I want to talk about all this stuff today. But we're gonna start with okay, what is dating? What is dating? Because I think the plot. A lot of people lose the plot pretty much, especially with all the chaos that surrounds dating apps and online dating. I would say dating generally is just like people going out with each other to see if they would make a good long term fit. And I don't think this necessarily means that their lifestyles have to match up or they have to check certain boxes. It's like, do you vibe with this person? Do you get along with this person? Can you have a good time with this person? Can you share things with this person? Can you be not like, I mean, can you be intimate, but not in like a weird physical, like pushy kind of way, but like a can you be emotionally intimate? Can you know what I mean? Can you are there like all these things that kind of like and it does sound like you're checking boxes, but a lot of it is just feeling things out. Dating is like feeling things out. How like what's going on here? Like I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. We're kind of like talking to each other and flirting and it's just a lot is happening. But yeah, dating really is just feeling things out to see where things can go from here. I don't think that it sounds kind of weird, but I kind of I guess I kind of said in the beginning it's seeing if you can make a long-term fit, but I really feel like the early stages of dating are actually the most careless, not careless, carefree, and they lack planning, I think. Like they lack long-term planning. I don't mean like, oh, we're gonna go out on a date tonight. Let's plan our date. I mean like, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? I think that sounds kind of weird, but that's kind of irrelevant. I think in the first, it's irrelevant in the first phases of dating. There's also like short-term relationships, which I think are kind of different. It's more casual, non-committal. You're not really like you are kind of trying to get along with another person and trying to like see if your kind of energy, I guess, matches. But I think it is distinct from like dating to get to know somebody versus dating to just have like a casual sort of relationship. So what does modern dating look like? Because, 50, 60, 70 years ago, dating was a completely different thing. Modern dating uses a lot of online tools, online dating websites, right? You got your farmersonly.com, you got your Plenty of Fish, you got Tinder, you got Hinge, right? I think that might be for only a certain group of people. But you got a tons of different websites and apps and all this time kind of stuff that people use to find dates. And you didn't have that 50, 60, 70 years ago. You had to actually go out and find another human being, look at them, feel attracted to them, talk to them, ask them out on a date, and then boom, you're on a date. Or maybe you got rejected. But I think the barrier to entry for dating was way, 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 way higher, last century, or hell, even 20 years ago. Before, let's say before the social media, the invention of the iPhone, the invention of convenience, right? Before all of this stuff, dating was the barrier to entry was way higher. Now you can just pull out your phone, go on an app, swipe, 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 send a few messages, boom, you're gonna go on a date, next week on Friday or something like that. It's the success rate I understand is different and it's not so easy, but generally speaking, like that's kind of how it works. You send a message, you go out on a date. Um, I think that's it's a lot different. It's a lot more accessible. It's a lot more convenient. The barrier to entry is a lot lower these days. And this sort of convenience lends itself to dating being a form of entertainment or distraction, as opposed to, being something that can like actually provide value to your life in a positive way. But I'll kind of talk about that more later. So yeah, modern dating, lots of apps, lots of online dating, lots of convenience. This all in my sort of logically, I feel like it leads to a normalization of talking to multiple people in the early phases of dating, right? This again was not probably as widely accepted as it is. This probably was not widely accepted 60 years ago, in the same way that it is today. It's widely accepted to talk to multiple people, play the field, look at your options. You don't want to be trapped with this one person. You don't want to waste your time with one person. Spread your time evenly. Don't, stick to one person. This, I think, is a hallmark of modern dating. I feel like also part of like the normalization of talking to multiple people is not only the convenience of it, right? I can just message even, I can message 7 people, 8 people. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go on a date with them or multiple dates with them, but I'm messaging them and I'm talking to them in these early phases of dating. Another factor that kind of plays into that is just the pressure, like to find your person, your partner, your the one or the whatever. You know what I mean? To find the right one. That pressure also leads people to like, okay, I can talk to more people, maximize my chances. It's almost like desperation kind of fueling it. So yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing. Going along with online dating, many people are not interested in long-term relationships. Like we talked about, short-term relationships exist. A lot of people, a lot of people just don't know what they want. They don't know what they're doing, and I think this is a giant problem with online dating, dating apps, all that type of stuff, because people use it, like I said, as entertainment. They use it as a distraction. They're pretty much just wasting your time if you're actually trying to find a relationship. People just go on dating apps because they can, because they get some form of pleasure from like talking to people. Like I think there's a statistic, and I don't think this is going to be exactly correct, but it's very similar. There's like 50% of women on Tinder are looking to have some sort of unmet psychological need fulfilled through using the app. Like that's crazy. Half or more of women on Tinder are using it to have some sort of unmet psychological need fulfilled with the app, through the app, talking to people, interacting with people, instead of like using it in like a more productive way, right? And I'm sure men have this like a similar problem. Maybe men have the same exact numbers. Maybe men are doing the same exact thing. Like it's like I'm not gonna discount that. I would believe you if you told me the same thing about men, but like the point is not to bash on women. The point is to be like people just use these apps, like they don't use them to really like get into relationships, to have success in dating and go on and get married and all that. A lot of people are just using them for validation, just using them to, fill a void that exists within themselves by getting complimented by strangers, by talking to strangers. And I think that modern dating apps can dating apps and online dating can be very, very soul sucking, and it can be a waste of time because of stuff like this. So you have to be very careful. And I think that um is a big reason why modern dating feels so frustrating, why it feels so like annoying, why it feels like so many people resent the system of dating that exists. It's because like it feels like a waste of time. It feels like what am I even doing here talking to this person? It's like clear that most people don't want to have a successful long-term relationship. Like what am I doing here, right? A lot of people probably feel this way. And so another thing with online dating, and not online, but modern dating, and this, you know, I don't think this is unique to modern dating, but we hear it a lot. We hear a lot about, I want a man who's over 6 feet tall, or I want a woman with this particular body type, or I want a man who isn't bald, or I want a woman who's not fat or whatever. Like all this sort of appearance based stuff, all this shallow kind of thinking. Like, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, appearance doesn't matter. All what matters is on the inside. Like, obviously you want to be attracted to the person you're going to, right? But or the person you're going out with. But um I think social media and online dating have perpetuated this idea of like quote unquote not settling, and people take that to mean, oh, I need a 10 out of 10 person and I'm not going to settle for anything less. There's not enough 10 out of 10 people on this earth to go around. That's like the top 1% of people in terms of appearance, or probably 5% or 10%. But like people are obsessed with like this idea of like dating somebody who checks all their boxes of like the way that they look, right? I think people get really obsessed with that, and again, leads to frustration, resentment, anger because they can't find this perfect partner. It doesn't. It's not to say you can't find the perfect partner. The perfect partner doesn't exist, but this partner that they create in their mind, I'm saying, doesn't exist. This person who is like has all these characteristics that they could have ever wanted, had ever dreamed of, and then they're just gonna find it one day. You know, I don't think that happens. That's not really real. I think that a lot of people, the person that they end up actually falling in love with and making a successful life with, is usually the person that they didn't really expect. And I'll go into that more later. I feel like it's super important though. Okay, so is modern dating like a job interview? I touched on this a little bit earlier. You meet up with somebody and you ask questions to each other to get to know each other, right? But it kind of feels like a job interview. Now you only get to this date, right, where you ask each other questions to get to know one another. This really only happens if you pass the physical looks barrier that exists with online dating, because you can look at someone's profile. Oh, they're ugly. Swipe. Oh, they're ugly. Swipe. Oh, this guy's, pretty good looking, or this girl is pretty good looking, right? And so you message them, and then you go on a date, right? So you only go on the date if you pass the physical appearance barrier. I feel like that's pretty reasonable to say too. Like that's just how people are. Like we just that's just how we are, right? Um, and I think that this period, or not this period, I would say this form of going on a date and then proceeding to ask like really generic basic questions to get to know, quote unquote, get to know somebody, because that's not really what you're doing, right? uh, it feels like it's about checking boxes to see if this person matches what I want, my requirements, my lifestyle. I'm not gonna, again, it returns to this idea of I'm not going to settle. This person needs to fit my boxes. What do you do for a living? What are your hobbies? Did you go to school? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? All these types of questions are box checking questions. You're not really trying to like understand a human being or get to know somebody or check like if you kind of like match each other's energy or vibe or whatever. These questions are just box checking questions where it's like, okay, does this person match what I want? What do I want? And it's all about what I want, not like we have this very rigid mindset of like, what do I want? What do I want? I want this person to have this and this and this. I want them to make this amount of money. I want them to look this way. I want them to behave this particular way. I don't want them to be shy. I want them to be outgoing. I want them to do this and this and this. And it's like, you're not looking for a human being at this point. You're looking for this imaginary idea that exists within your head. I think it's just a very rigid way of thinking. And this goes back to box checking. This job interview like style of dating is due to this underlying sense of rigidity and desperation. People need to find their match. They need to get their boxes checked. And I think it's desperation because of the fact that, I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm never gonna find the person. I'm never gonna find this person, or I'm getting older. I need to find the person I'm going to get married to and have children with. And I think this is a lot of societal pressure and stuff like that, which we'll talk about. But yeah, lots of rigidity, lots of desperation in modern dating. And so I think also it can end like a job interview. It's like, oh, I had fun. Let's keep in touch. All right. That can translate to, we'll contact you if we decide to move forward with your application. Just really hammering home the job interview point. So there's the job interview, right? And why does it feel like this? Well, it feels like this because there's a lot of pressure from society, there's a lot of pressure from family, there's even biological pressure to find somebody, settle down, get married, have children, right? Uh I guess it's society, it's things that society and family tell us, but we put the pressure on ourselves. So for example, like society has this path laid out for us, right? You grow up, you graduate high school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have children, you grow old, and you die, right? That's just how society kind of has laid things out for us. That's just the path that is laid out for us. That's what we're supposed to do, quote unquote, right? That's just kind of how it is. And then there's family pressure. Some people's families pressure them into having children, getting married. Oh, you're getting old. When are you going to give me grandchildren? Or, oh, you're getting old. Like, are you going to have kids anytime soon? Or what's going on with that? You haven't found anybody. You're not in a relationship. You're 33 years old and you haven't had a boyfriend yet. Or you're 35 years old and you're not even married yet. Oh, you're so far into your career, but you just haven't had any kids yet. And it's like this pressure that people put on you to do these things like date, find a person, get married, have children, all this pressure. And then there's biological pressure. Because let's face it, at a certain point, we don't want to have kids past a certain age, or we just can't. If you're 35 years old and you're not married and you don't have a partner, you're not in a relationship, you're not even dating, like the biological clock is not on your side at that point. And that's, it's unfortunate because maybe you want to have kids, but that's just the way it is. Like that's just the way it is. And there's pressure on both men and women because I mean, although men can have children at uh, later ages in their life, it's like, do you really want to have a kid at 50 years old? Not only do you want to do that and put yourself through that and put the child through that and put your whoever you're with through that, but your child can end up having more issues uh, the longer you wait to have children. If you're older, if you're a woman or a man, so I think that that's also something to consider. But basically, there's a ton of pressure to do it now, do it now, do it now while you're young. Do it now, find that person now, get married now, have children now. Pressure from society, family, biologically, and that creates a sense of desperation for a lot of people, sense of rigidity because this person has to match my life. And with this rigidity, right? I guess I'm gonna go back to a little bit because I think something important to touch on is like relationships are not. People should not be so rigid at the beginning of a relationship, at the beginning of in these beginning stages of dating, because the point of a relationship is to have two people start from two separate points, and then kind of they kind of inch toward one another over time. And that's what a relationship is. You kind of build a life together. You start off in two different positions and you build a life together. People have this idea that other people need to match their requirements, have to check their boxes before they can be like, okay, I'll be in a relationship with you. When in reality, that's not how life works. We are flawed people. We don't necessarily have lifestyles that match up with one another perfectly. Not everything's going to sync up. Not everybody's going to meet the expectations. It's like I think we could all benefit from like being a little more relaxed, being a little less rigid and being more open-minded. So dating is hard. Dating is hard. But we have to make it not hard. And how do we do that? We can shift our focus from desperation and box checking to being more carefree and to just like enjoying things more, right? And this is easier said than done. Like I said, there's a lot of pressure that people are under. And so if you're, 35 years old, you're probably going to be desperate if you want to have children or you want to get married. And it's hard to not be desperate. Like that's, I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy to just like forget all of this. But trying to get to know a person through real conversation when you're going on your first few dates instead of asking box checking questions, trying to match their vibes and trying to like see where this could go. And I'm not saying it's not important to know what a person does for a living or how much or what their hobbies are, where they see themselves in the future, but I think that it's also important to just like relax, take a deep breath and like just try and enjoy the moment, I suppose. Not limiting yourself to particular types is super important. I think this goes along with being rigid. People tend to limit themselves and what kind of person they'll date, whether it's through behavior, physical appearance, anything like that, what kind of profession they have. Oh, I'll never date a doctor, or oh, I'll never date a lawyer, or I'll never date a garbage man, or whatever, right? People are super rigid, super judgmental, I think. And it's again, I'm not like trying to be say that these people are bad or anything, but I do think it can serve to be more open-minded about the types of people we'll be with, uh, because you never know. You could always end up finding fulfillment with somebody you may have never expected. And so, lastly, there's a lot of psychological crap that we carry with us throughout our lives and into relationships that will possibly affect our relationships. And now you don't have to be perfect. You can enter into a relationship if you have issues, mental issues, psychological issues, traumas. That doesn't all have to be solved. But it's important to not let that affect your relationship or the person that you're with as much as you can in like a reasonable way, because it can be hard to manage sometimes, understandably so. But in reality, like, I think it's super important to kind of have a good handle on these things, but at the same time, understand you don't have to be perfect to be in a relationship. I think a lot of social media uh, perpetuates this idea of like getting yourself, work on yourself, then you'll be ready. Work on yourself, then they will all come to you. When I don't know if that's true, I have no idea, but yeah, that's just the way it is, I guess. I think that it can serve to, you know, be more open-minded. You don't have to be perfect. The person you're with doesn't have to be perfect. You guys are flawed. You guys are flawed. I think going along with this idea, a lot of people will enter relationships when they absolutely should not. They use them as a band-aid for their issues in their own lives and their own traumas and psychological issues. So that's also something to watch out for, I guess. It's tough out there. But anyway, that's it. I've actually never been on a date, so